I'm the Doctor.
I'm a time lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey, the constellation of Cerberus. I see rise.
Time and relative dimension in space.
It means life.
Greetings, humans, Daleks, Time Lords, and giant eggs. You are listening to Exterminating Doctor Who.
This is the show to take unpopular episodes and debate whether they're really all that bad.
With your hosts, Aidan Gula.
And me, George Ellis.
And in today's episode, we are talking about Kill the Moon. The way I shall begin this is by saying I despise this episode.
You'd always, I remember, like, before we even started doing this podcast, if ever the conversation topic, bad episodes of Doctor Who, ever came up in conversation, you would always mention Kill the Moon with a hatred. And I was always like, it can't be that bad. It can't, like, what in this episode could make you hate it quite so much? And I've just seen it, and I hate it just about as much, maybe more, depending.
I remember the first time. There are very few episodes when I can remember the first time they aired, but this is one of them. Like, I have a mental picture of the room. I remember seeing it, and I remember when this episode came out, and it got to, well, the egg. We're not beating around with spoilers, are we? So when it gets to the egg scene, I just went, "Oh, come on!" And then for that rest of that, like, next week, talking to people at school that I know watch Doctor Who, I was just like, "What has happened to Doctor Who? What is this now? What is this show? I'm going to stop watching. I'm going to stop bloody watching." Anyway, next week. But it was like, I just really hate this episode. So even though this is the podcast where I say, you know what, there's this episode that isn't very popular, but I'm going to give it another chance. This is one where I'm saying there are no second chances for this episode because I just hate it, and here's why.
Yeah. No, it's so, like, you've got I remember last night when I saw it, I sent you my initial reaction to the egg. You saved that because it's just me swearing vigorously at the idea. I
might play it on here, but also, I usually censor the swearing, but
I mean,
I'm the editor. I'm the editor. I can do what I want, really, can't I? I could put funny hats on us or something. So
this could just be an 18+ version. This one.
Yeah, just
subscribe to our Patreon if you want to see the NSFW.
The one where we just, like, it's obscene. It's just No, it's strange because I said to you last night that because I've seen it so many times, because it's like I was saying about the Chris Ferguson episode, because it's like the first Capaldi series. If ever I do a rewatch, I'll start with series 8, watch all of series 8, then maybe fall off halfway through series 9 if I'm a bit bored or whatever. So I've just seen this episode tons of times. So the twist is probably not warmed on me, but I'm used to it now.
Yes.
So when they're doing all the mystery bit in the first half, which I do think is quite good, but we'll come on to that in a second. When they're doing all the mystery thing, I know how it plays out. So I'm like, oh God, but I know where it's going. But as soon as they just say the bombshell and they go, "The moon's an egg," and I'm like, oh, this still winds me up. As much as the first half has essentially grown on me, everything after the moon is an egg reveal is where this episode just goes from maybe like a 6 out of 10 to just a -6 out of 10. I just hate it.
It's such a. We'll go more into the actual idea, but it's just so. It's Doctor Who trying to be clever when it doesn't need to be.
It's Doctor Who trying to be clever when it doesn't need to be, and it's also that usually Doctor Who has some sort of grounding in science.
Yeah.
Like, whether or not it's believable, sometimes they can just go, "It's alien tech," and you can go, "Okay, sure, whatever," and just move on. But when it's like something we know, like the moon, we know what the moon is, we know what bacteria is, and then they basically just go, "No, this is what they really are," and it's like, don't patronize me. It's like, I know bacteria aren't spiders. I know the moon isn't an egg. Why are you doing this?
And it's not like those spiders were like they were like, these are bacteria. I'm like, no, they're not. They're doing spider. They're just webbing. They're doing webs. It's just like that's.
Yeah, that was exactly a point I put down. It's like they go, oh, there's these big spiders, there's cobwebs, sure, whatever, move on. And they go, no, they're actually bacteria, and it's like, did you forget about the cobwebs?
Yeah, it's like they set them up to be these spiders, and we're just like, no, but actually they're this. That's not. That is subverting my expectation.
Ryan
But that,
Johnson style.
yeah, it's not a good way of doing it because it's you shouldn't. Right. If you build a character, give me all these pieces. This character has this element, this element, this element, but actually they're over here. It doesn't quite work.
No.
It's like if Aidan, you were to tell me you were a blonde, I wouldn't believe you.
Well, I used to be.
He did, exactly. See, that's the thing. Character development. He's actually a brunette. I thought he was a blonde. It's that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Subverting expectations.
Yes. I
So
don't know where that was going. What the
no, not really. So let's go on to the first section of this podcast. We'll divide it into three little bits today. So we'll begin with the first half of the episode, which I think is not strong, but it's bearable. So we'll start with that section first, because like I said to you last night,
Oh.
all my notes are actually pluses up until one point, and then from there they're all minuses. There's no more pluses from there. So that bit with the plus is where I'm watching it going, you know what, this isn't actually that bad. I quite like this. And I do think the first half is relatively enjoyable.
I would definitely agree with you on
Relatively.
that. Yes, no, I enjoy the acting. Feels strong. The character development they feel like good. Everything feels like good. Not amazing Doctor Who, because obviously Doctor Who can be phenomenal, but it's nice average Doctor Who up
Yeah.
until the twist. It feels nice, good mystery.
Just a mid-series standard episode at that point.
That kind of thing. And it's like, I'm enjoying this, but the moment the twist hits, it's like everything. It's like it's not just like the twist is so bad it ruins the rest of the episode. It is the twist is so bad the mystery loses everything, and the characters then forget who they are, and then it's like it's like the writers at that moment decided to just change everything for no reason other than being quirky.
Yeah, I agree. Because usually in these podcasts we say, what's the saving grace? And more often than not we go, it's the Doctor. Again, I wouldn't say that because they completely ruined him.
Yeah.
But if I'd find any saving grace, it would be the first half in my mind, from Courtney being picked up for no really apparent reason, but sure, to the whole building the mystery as to what is wrong with the moon. I do think that is actually intriguing. When he's got like the yo-yo and stuff, he's like saying, what's wrong with my yo-yo? And Clara's like, nothing.
That bit where he's walking around testing the gravity, that's so Doctor. I love that.
I like that bit, because they were like threatening him and talking seriously, and he was just basically just doing this weird walk around the room. I quite like that.
He's introducing himself in a badass way, but also just being a complete fool, and that's so Doctor. It felt like a nice mix between kind of David Tennant's Doctor doing weird stuff like putting his hand in jam, and Matt Smith's Doctor just bouncing around. It felt. The more I do see of Peter Capaldi's Doctor after watching Matt's and David's Doctor kind of in pieces, you really do see how Peter's is a very much a combination of every Doctor. He's very good. I'm just gonna say that.
I agree. And even like you said yesterday, just a small line that you quite liked is when Clara's talking about Courtney Woods and he says, what is Courtney? He doesn't say who's Courtney. He just responds with, what is Courtney?
That's my only note. I loved that bit because it's so Doctor. It's like, what is Courtney Woods? No. And that was that. Every single point I'm saying here, first half.
Yeah.
Because
all first half.
Okay. Where do you want to talk about now? Like, can I go into the mystery?
Or we'll just generally handle the first half. I'll work through my notes and see what we've got. Seeing as we're talking about Courtney here, let's just talk about Courtney, because last week we had an episode where there are children in the TARDIS for no apparent reason, and this episode we have a child in the TARDIS for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
But strangely, I quite like Courtney compared to Angie and whatever the boy was called last week.
Yeah.
I much prefer Courtney, though I do watch it going, okay, so you're basically only here just so Clara has somebody else to talk to later on in the episode. But you're here, sure, you get some funny scenes out of the Doctor, I guess.
she feels pointless, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
I
she does, but
she's better than last week's child
children.
actors, but she's not great either. The character isn't, personally. I think
No.
the thing is, you've got TV shows, or just, I don't know. It doesn't. First off, the character annoys me because by definition, it's meant to be this. I don't know. The Doctor's annoyed by her, and I'm very much annoyed by the fact she's annoying the Doctor. I'm like, stop it! You're not special. Get over it. No. But she just doesn't feel like there's any reason for her to be there.
No, I agree. I think she was in the previous episode, The Caretaker, where she basically just shows up and she's like, "What's that blue box?" And then she introduces herself as a disruptive influence. The Doctor's like, "So am I," and then he basically takes her into the TARDIS. And then she throws up. So she's fine in that episode, but when this episode starts with her still in it, it's a bit like, "Why are you still here?" And then it makes sense to me later on when, it's Clara, Hermione, Norris, whatever her character's name is, and then Courtney there, because it just gives Clara somebody else to bounce off rather than just being a one-way discussion.
Yeah, but the thing is, with that bit, it doesn't feel like there's much coming back the other way. Because the problem with writing a kid into these kind of really stressful situations is, unless you know how they deal with it, it just feels like a blank slate and you're just talking to nothing, really.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm just trying to find positives in it, really.
I know, but I feel like having... Honestly, my standout for this episode, acting-wise, is Jenna Coleman. She is...
Yeah.
Honestly, I think she's fabulous in this episode. And
I'm gonna agree and say I like
Oh.
Jenna Coleman in it, but I'm gonna say I don't like Clara in it. Because this sort of underpins my big problem with Clara. And I'll come on to that when we discuss that final scene later on, but I do think there are a lot of problems with Clara here. My final thing about Courtney is that even though she is a bit pointless, I do quite like the way... I like the characterization of the Doctor at the beginning of this episode, because there's the bit where Clara says, "Oh, you said she wasn't special." And I quite like that because it shows how this Doctor is seeing things as a much bigger picture. So he's essentially looking at Courtney and saying, "Well, in the big scheme of things, she isn't really special, is she?" But then he says,
not this episode either.
but then once she's in the TARDIS, the Doctor decides he's going to basically show her that she can be special by taking her to the moon. And I quite like that as a Doctor, because he's like, big picture, you're not special. However, individually, you can be. And I do quite like that.
Yeah, okay. Now that you explain it, that is that it's showing her that that anyone can be special, but you're not special right now. That kind of idea. Yeah, no, okay. Could have done it. The fact that kind of went over my head because I was just annoyed by everything that's going on in the episode was disappointing.
Oh, every single message of this episode just basically goes over my head, and I've really had to think in the last 24 hours what the hell this episode's actually trying to say.
Because that's actually a nice idea. That's a nice idea, but the fact the Doctor... It's such a complicated message, that one, like, to actually show. You should have just had the Doctor just say anyone can be special. Just say that, and then it's done.
Yeah, that's the thing, because it's really subtle, and I think it's because I basically really understand this Doctor that I sort of get that. And then by the end of the episode, he says, "Well, she goes on to be the President of the United States." This really weird thing happens, and then he says that really small line, unless you pick up on it. And
I picked up on that.
But it's like... Well, it's whether or not you've picked up on it, but related it to what he says earlier on.
Yeah, I was just like, right, so is he now... I was like, did he now realise she's special, or what's going on here? But no, I see.
So,
I'm being thick.
Or
the episode's being thick, one or the other.
That's the episode is being very thick. That's my little points for Clara Courtney. Then we get to the moon. And we're already... alarm bells are ringing a little bit, but...
One thing I will say, though, about the actual moon itself, when they're on the moon, I don't doubt they're on the moon. The only thing, because they're not bouncing around, but that's obviously...
Explained, yeah.
A part of me feels like the writing was like, we'll write this in as a part of the moon being denser, because this also means we don't have to do any special effects with them bouncing around.
Yeah, maybe.
But them being on the moon did look a hell of a lot better than in Matt Smith's episode, actually. Where they were on that fake moon, it just felt more like they're on a different planet.
I guess, well, it was a fake moon though, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it looked really fake. Like,
okay,
but no, the actual moon effect looked good. That's one thing.
Yeah, and
The sets were good
I
actually.
can't remember what I was going to say there, but I do
Actually,
quite.
sorry, I'm just rambling. The sets were are really good in this episode.
Yeah, maybe. I think what they look at. There's a room later on that they run. No, it's the corridor when Clara and
Does the slow
somebody run
motion.
up. Yeah, they do the slow motion run up the corridor. And that looks really cheap.
Yeah, but I think that's just because you've got time to focus on everything because someone's bright idea was
Yeah, maybe.
slow motion. Good idea, Dave. And it's like, what, Dave? No.
But besides that, okay, I agree with you. I do like the moon ship that they first arrive on because I like how they explain that it's dated tech because people basically don't care about space travel anymore at this time in the future, 2049, when I'll be 48 and you'll be 49, and that's really scary. But I don't like when there's episodes set in the future, but I know I'm going to see that future. I hate that.
Yeah.
But I do quite like the way they're saying that, people don't really care about space travel anymore because you sort of see that today. Like NASA's funding isn't, they don't get a lot of funding sometimes for space travel, hence why everything's like robots and things like that now. And most things that are space missions tend to be private, like Elon boy with his mission to Mars.
To be fair, I'm glad we've got someone like Elon. I don't think he's definitely not my role model, but I'm glad we've got someone like him who's actually putting money into some space travel because it's interesting, and it could be somewhere quite fruitful, but it seems like everyone's giving up, which is a bit sad.
And and you see it today, so it shows that in 2049 this may be what it's like.
I think it's either going to be we're full steam ahead with it, or it's going to peter out, and it's going to be very sad.
Yeah, maybe. And then maybe when it gets to like 2069, it's like, 100 years ago we first landed on the moon. Maybe then people get an interest again. But
yeah, and we'll be there, and then we'll be there like, and then they're building like huge spaceships, and like, you could have done this 10 years ago. I've got a cane now. Like, come on.
Yeah, I'm about to turn 70. Could you not have done this earlier?
Yeah.
Put my head in a jar like Futurama, and then you get my interest.
Yes.
So I do quite like that. I like, isn't there even a line where Hermione Norris, I don't actually know what a character name is. I just know her as Hermione Norris from Cold Feet. So that's just what I'm going to call her.
I don't think they ever actually said her name.
No, I don't know if they did because I would have picked up on it otherwise. But there is a line where she says like, second-rate space shuttle, third-rate astronauts or something like that, isn't there? And I do like that line. Like we said, the mystery with the gravity is intriguing. That's what comes next. I'm just working through my notes. The next note I have are scuttling spiders are creepy AF. That's
they were up until the point that they actually showed me it. As soon as they showed me one, I was like, well, you're CGI and you don't mean anything. Face huggers, practical effects, and when they were CGI, really good CGI because obviously bigger budget. But the problem with Doctor Who trying to do CGI aliens is they can't afford them. They never look good. And these ones are prime examples.
Yeah, I agree. But with that bit when they're like going, oh, what is that? And it's like noise. And they were like, oh, what is that? I do find that actually quite creepy and unnerving.
And the thing, but there's a thing about doing scary aliens and monsters. Scary when it's attacking, great. When it's killing someone quickly, that kind of thing, really scary. We don't know what it is. We see it. You're losing some of the terror there, but you just got to show me doing it something scary, and you kind of regain that. The moment you show it killed by like bleach or whatever, and it's like, okay, now you've lost me. These things are no longer a threat.
Yeah, and I mean that whole thing just doesn't make sense about them being bacteria either, does it?
No, no.
Like, since when were bacteria A that big and B spiders? And like we said, why are they making cobwebs if they're not spiders? It's just stupid.
They're trying to make it. I see what their thought process is. Big creature equal bigger bacteria. I'm like, no, because in proportion to that creature, it would be able to see these animals. It seems like that's not how it works, even in that sense. Like the bacteria would still just be normal size to us, because it's not like, and bacteria can't like the moon doesn't have any gravity or any sort of atmosphere. I mean, sorry. So, well, it does have some sort of gravity because it's a mass, but it doesn't have any atmosphere. So how would any life, which bacteria is, be able to live on it? Thinking about it. Inside it, if it is an
Interesting
egg,
proposition.
perhaps. On its surface, no. I don't think that
Well, I
is how it
think
works.
once they get to the surface, it's because it has developed the gravity, isn't it? That's how they can
No, but the
walk on it.
gravity doesn't create atmosphere. Atmosphere is something very different. And the
Oh,
moon's
that's
still
so
going to be freezing cold. Which again, a part of me was like,
yeah, what are they breathing?
yeah.
Didn't even think about that. It's just
Bacteria
stupid then, isn't it?
Bacteria doesn't just live. It needs things to live. That's its whole thing. It loves sunlight. It loves warmth. It thrives on wet surfaces because it's got moisture there and heat. So and the moon is the complete opposite of that. It's cold, it's dry, and it's got no atmosphere. So
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, you've
It would
lost.
make sense while they're still in the shell, essentially.
Yes.
But as soon as, like you said, as soon as they're out and everybody's in spacesuits, it's like, what the hell? How are they alive?
Yeah. That's
Interesting point. I hadn't thought about that, but it makes them make even less
yeah.
sense.
And it would have made more sense just to make them these alien creatures.
Yeah.
There were these alien spiders, and that's it. All explanation done. Like there's no part of me that's ever gone with these xenomorphs from Alien and been like, how is that alien on the outside of the ship? I'm like, they're literally designed and built to be. You can tell they're like they've got exoskeletons, which means they can survive the pressures of high gravity planets or space, and they don't breathe air and all that kind of thing. They're designed to live in that environment, and I'm like, fine, fair enough. I don't even question it at all. To be fair, I'm only questioning it now. These spiders, I'm like, they're fragile, they're weak, and they are by definition from you bacteria.
Stupid Peter Harness.
Yep.
Do you want to do Doctor first or Twist first? Twist first. Go on then. I'm going to let you take this one because as it was your first time seeing it.
So right, mystery.
Shall I get the bleeper button ready?
Yes, I'll set this scene up for you. Imagine the moon. It's in space. Yeah, it's this big rock. We've done tests on it. We've taken some back home. We know what it is. There's a mystery. It's denser. It's bigger. What's happening? Why has it gained all this weight all of a sudden? Ah, I see. It's because there's bacteria living on the moon. Okay, bit weird, but okay. I'm kind of with you now. No, that's not the reason. The reason is because the moon's a egg. It's just a big mother piece of it's a egg. Who? I don't understand. Who the hell?
I hate it so much. One of my biggest things that I hate in anything, not just Doctor Who, but absolutely anything I've ever watched, is when they get something and they go, but it was really this all along. I hate that so much.
There's no grounding. If you don't, right, in a big film, if you set it up being a mystery of this character being this thing, that can maybe work if you give us hints. But if you change something that is fundamentally something else for the sake of making it clever, you have no reason to do it and no right. It doesn't work either, and it never works ever.
Yeah, that's it. It's something that we know for a fact is something, and then they say no, it's really not. Hence why I hate The Timeless Child, because for 57 years we knew that the Doctor was a Time Lord, and then they went, no, she's not. And it's like, and then I just go, yes, he is. And I'm going to ignore everything you say because you're just talking nonsense. So when they say the moon that we've done tests on for 50 odd years, that it's been on the circled this planet for billions of years, not really the moon. It's like, I don't care what you say. I'm just going to ignore that because it is. It's just stupid, and I hate it.
It's dumb. It's so dumb. It's like it doesn't work. It's like when they do if ever in films they do the Earth center is actually this thing. It's like no, it isn't. Because if it was, none of this would happen. It's the classic. If it is that, if it is an egg, then none of the other facts in it make sense. It's not even like it's a base in a fact. Because the Doctor at some point says it's just eggshell, and it's like, no, it isn't. It's a big rock. It is a big rock.
It is a big rock.
It's
And I sort of
thick.
think like every single test we've ever done on the moon, have we never tried to, X-ray or scan what's beneath it? How far deep does it go? Is it rock all the way through? Surely we've done tests like that.
No,
I don't
I'm
know,
pretty sure.
but I'm sure we have.
But
How have
that's
they
not.
never detected a
It
massive
wouldn't.
being there?
I doubt we would have done an X-ray, but it wouldn't. Like we've got seismographs, and we literally use vibrations to tell. Like we know how thick our planet is and what this one is made of. I'm sure we've done it to the moon because at that point it would have been easy peasy to do. I'm sure.
Hmm.
I'm actually going to Google that because I really want to know.
Yeah, I'll
Do
just
we?
keep talking while you do because
Yeah.
I think right, if you look at it, say 1969 when we're first in the moon, any test that we've done since then, if you look at that, that's less than 100 years before it cracks open. So we're really, in the scheme of things, we've gone from billions of years. That
Yeah.
last 100 is very insignificant. Surely, in that time, and don't call me Shirley, we would have seen some sign that there is some massive creature beneath it.
Well,
Surely, as I wrote in my note, is still stupid. That was my note. I just hate it so much. That's all I have to say about it because I just hate it. And when we come to the ending and they're on that beach, which before I even say my point, when they're on that beach and they've been talking about, right, okay, you've got an episode about rising tides. You're saying whole cities have been flooded. And yet, to watch the moon, you decide to pick a beach where the sea is very clearly fine and it's a very, very dry beach. So the water has never risen round there. If you're going to do that, pick a flooded city to watch it from. Pick somewhere where we can see the effects of what the moon has changed, how the moon's changed has affected Earth. Don't just go, here's a really dry beach where it's clear nothing has happened. To watch this massive creature lay an egg that is clearly bigger than it.
Yeah.
What?
What? When I saw that, I was like, okay. I was like, okay. So the way they're gonna have the moon back is gonna lay an egg. It's gonna lay an egg. The egg will grow. What? The egg's bigger. That's not how eggs work.
No, like imagine a chicken lays an egg the size of one of those big beach balls they pass around at Nickelback concerts.
Because
that would make no sense.
eggs are bigger than whatever is inside. That's just how it works, unless there's some sort of weird contortionist dragon. So for it to birth an egg that is, unless it's a spongy egg and it's like it comes out like a tube and then like
and then it inflates.
yeah. I mean that I'm not. It's an alien. It might have done that, but no, it's so dumb. And also, this reminds me, when we see Earth from space, does anything actually look different, or does it just look like Earth?
It
Because
just looks fine.
if the tides have risen, some things are going to be covered up.
Yeah.
England is going to be a real threat because we are an island.
Yeah.
I mean, United Kingdom, sorry, but it's.
Yeah, imagine, right? We really show the state of the planet. They zoom out, and Britain isn't even there.
Yeah, that would have been a nice.
Might not make sense for future Doctor episodes if we're in the future, but sure, Britain isn't there anymore. It's underwater.
Mhm.
The other thing that doesn't work is what is the message of this episode?
Eggs.
Because everybody that criticizes it tends to say it's
somehow.
Everybody usually says it's a really ham-fisted allegory for abortion. You're talking about do we kill this baby? Do
really
we not?
Isn't, though,
That's the view that most people have. The writer has said that wasn't my intention. But it is a very, very on the nose thing. There's a bit later on, isn't well, when they're debating whether or not to kill it or not, and Clara literally says, "Well, there's a baby there," and then Hermione Norris is like, "Oh, don't talk to me about babies." And that is, I'm watching that going, whether or not you meant to make an abortion metaphor, he claims he didn't, but whether or not they did or didn't, you have created one.
Yeah.
And are you really that dense, as you would say? I've started saying that because of you now.
Thank you.
Are you really that dense that you can't see that right there in that scene?
Are you denser than your interpretation of the moon? I believe, I feel like he did intend for it to be that message, but once he heard how much people thought it was a ham-fisted message, he's like, "Oh no, that's you guys, not me." That's how I
Yeah.
feel. It's the classic, that kind of thing. But if the message is about abortion, it's got no, and
There's still
there's
no
no meaning.
message.
No,
There's
but
no meaning to it.
it's not a good message if it is about abortion, because it's completely different. Because cases for abortion, for and against, and no matter what, there's always the idea that pregnancy can come from terrible things. It can come from love, and it can come from terrible things. And it's a very, very, very difficult decision. And you should never try and force your opinion on someone else. You can help, but you should never try and do that. You know what I mean? It's a very that kind of thing. But in this episode, it's the idea is that everyone on the planet votes to kill it to save themselves. And it's a completely different scope. It's like billions of people, one thing. And just because that thing is bigger doesn't mean it is therefore worth more. That's not how life works. Like, we
And
don't
that's
class.
just to build on that, just before you carry on. It's something I saw in one of my research videos this morning, where somebody said they've completely complicated the idea of what it means to be, pro-life, pro-choice, whatever. Because, they were saying that usually in these debates, whether or not you should or shouldn't do it, it's baby's life versus mother's life. It isn't baby's life versus billions of lives. It's like you've completely got the message wrong. Carry on.
It's yeah, you're right. It's disproportionate, and again, it's the idea that, right, if we look outside, do we class a rhinoceros? Actually, no, let's use a giraffe. Do we class a giraffe's life more important than a chipmunk's? Do you class it more important?
Well, no.
Because they're just if people think something's important is because of its size, then that's a weird power complex, personally, because life is not defined by its size ever, really, to be fair.
It's quite medieval, didn't? That's what they used to say back in like the Tudor times. That's why Henry VIII was so fat, because if you were fat, that showed you had power. That was the idea.
I've never been a fan of the way we determine size as power when we should really, or no, not size as power, size as life. That's not how life works. Like, intelligent life is not by definition big. Like, that's not how it works. So for them, I don't know, for them to class this baby, okay, it's a baby, it can't think, but it's alive. One thing, really small, or it's really big. It's still one thing. That doesn't make it any more or less. It is just alive. Like, what I'm trying to say is it's not less important or more important. It is just important as much as life is.
Yeah, yeah.
But they try and push it being it's this huge thing, and it's the same weight as billions of people. And it's like, it isn't. It isn't worth the same. But doesn't mean it's not important. So what you can do is try and save it without harming everyone else. You don't need to choose.
Yeah. And that's it. It's like right there. You've got. It's really complicated because it's just like there is no right or wrong here. There isn't really like a correct decision. There isn't a bad decision. It's just like you've set this up as being I can't decide.
Yeah, you're trying to make it this really strong ultimatum, but you've just shown me I can't kill this thing because its life is important as any other life in the universe. But I could kill this thing because it's just one life compared to billions. And it's like, either way, you are correct, but you're wrong in both senses.
And the thing I thought was about just the other. I'll say that other abortion bit in a minute. It's a really educational podcast today, isn't it? But the bit I wrote earlier on was, what is the message? Is it against populism? It's unclear, because that was when they put it down to a big vote, and then Clara just ignores the vote and is like, I'm better than you. I'm going to do my own decision. And I was like, well, what are you trying to say there? Are you maybe right? Okay, this has just occurred to me. Maybe if it is that abortion thing, maybe if it's that sort of everybody say no, don't do it, and then she says I will, that kind of thing. Maybe that's the message. But
maybe
it's the message in reverse.
Do what you think is right. Okay.
Against from public pressure, maybe. Okay, maybe we've made something out of that, but
the thing is, it's not a decision. But public pressure. The reason public pressure is so dumb is because it doesn't affect them. No matter what you do with your body, it's not their decision at all, ever. Like, do you know what I mean? It is not your decision for me to shave my head or anything like that. Obviously, it's not the same, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But in this instance, the threat is to them, this creature will destroy all of them. So it's very much their choice as well.
Mm.
So even that point doesn't work.
No,
Because
it does affect them
quite badly.
Yeah.
Like it's so that it no matter how you try
it does affect them, and they say no, kill it, and then Clara goes, nah, I'm gonna do my own thing.
the only message I can see this working as is the idea that humans are as a collective dumb and panicky and will follow each other as sheep. But the thing is, it's not very well told because literally there's a line in the first Men in Black: people are dumb, panicky animals, a person is smart. That's what I forget his name. Agent K says.
Tommy
He
Lee
says that
Jones.
line. Yes. He says that line, and I'm like, that's got a lot of meaning behind it. That is it's powerful, it makes sense. That's the only meaning that this could maybe have. But the problem with this is it's not them being dumb panicky, it's them thinking, this creature could kill my kids.
Let's kill it.
Yeah, that's defensive. The reason I keep fighting on both sides for this one, devil's advocate, is because I can't really decide which decision is the best one. Because I don't have enough information, nor do I believe in either choice. Because
Yeah. When I was watching it, I was thinking, I don't know which one I'd vote for. And then there was a point when all the people started to turn the lights off. I was like, I can't remember if lights on or off was yes or no. I can't remember what's going on here because I'm so lost in what would I do. And I was like, I don't know what the decision would be because you've made it really unclear as to what is going on. So maybe that's why people are like, should we just turn the lights off? Yeah, I don't really know what we do. Just turn the lights off.
And also everyone on Earth turned their lights off.
No, only half of Earth, which I pointed out. I thought this is just America and the UK. What about the people on the other side of the planet who are all asleep right now?
Yeah. And it's
or
like,
awake? Would they be awake because we're on the moon
depending
side?
on what had happened in 2049, the government power, they could have just shut down all the power and made the decision themselves.
Yeah, I
We
thought
don't
like
know.
you could see whole blocks of cities
Yeah.
turning off. I thought, well, who made that executive decision?
That's just one guy going,
Shut the power off in New York, sure. Cities not collapsing. They just
Yeah.
turned a few lights off.
Whoops.
Sorry, we cut the power just because there's some big moon thing happening. What
A
moon thing? I
lady
don't know. I
was on
don't
the
really
TV,
know.
so we just,
There was some woman on TV saying there was something wrong with the moon, so we just went along with it and turned the
most
lights
people
off.
believe that to be a hoax. I would. If that was on
Yeah.
TV, I was
If
like,
I
this
was
is cool.
I was watching TV and some woman's face showed up, and they were like, "There's a problem with the moon. It's really a big animal." I'd be like, "Oh, fuck off," and I'd just change the channel. I wouldn't be
I'd
like,
lights off. Okay, hey, that'll show them.
I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, and would move on. I agree. It's just such a complex discussion because
About nothing.
it's such a complex topic because there's really nothing there, and because you've presented it in such an odd way.
No matter which side you fight for, the episode tries to push you the other way. Like, okay, it's a threat, but the Doctor's left. Why would he leave if he? There's a lot of.
Even that comes down to this is what I thought was really ham-fisted, is when he does leave and he says, "This isn't my decision, it's up to you, womankind." And I thought, oh, come on, that's just you saying this isn't a man's decision, it's up to women for abortion. And I thought,
I see.
do you know what I mean? But the way they presented that by going, womankind, wink, wink, I was like, oh, come
because this
on.
episode was being so dumb. When they did that, I was just like, he's just saying womankind because obviously it's women there and it's just Clara. Like, I thought he just meant that to Clara, like empowering her. But no, that's them again. It is definitely trying to be an abortion message.
Even though he claims he's not.
But you can't. You can't do an abort. I don't like it as that. If it is like I hate it as trying to be that because you can't make that decision. You can't do a big show saying for this decision you should do this choice because of this reason. It's like it's not the same, and it really annoys me. So for a TV show to be like, I have that power to make this decision, it's so pompous. And
yeah.
And here's an idea for a message: killing is bad. There you go, done.
Yeah, and it's just you think about it, it's like the majority of people, there's a lot of things to find out before we really go on a rabbit hole, but I think like the majority of people would lean pro-choice, that it's up to the woman to decide. Usually things come down to like if the woman's life is threatened or she can't handle the baby, abortion is acceptable in those situations. That's usually the mass opinion.
Mhm.
Is that okay, yeah, I've got my point back.
Okay.
Usually the mass opinion is that if the woman's life is threatened, abortion is maybe acceptable, which makes sense for the populist vote when everybody says kill it. Okay, let's just give that a little devil's advocate, as you said. However, when they ignore that against populist demand, and then it breaks the egg and flies away, it's sort of like, well, were you telling us it is right to kill it or not right? It's, as you said, it's a pompous decision for them to say this is right or wrong. By having it fly away and saying this was the correct decision, and Clara even says, I nearly made the wrong decision. That is the line she says. By saying, oh no, the right decision is to let it live. That is a bit like you said, that is thing going, well, don't tell me what decision to make. It's up to me to do that. Don't tell me, actually, look what could happen if you let it live. That's like, how dare you, in a way. It's like, you don't have the right to say that.
They are not saying in this episode, make up your decision, it's always up to you. They're not saying that because they explicitly say the other decision should have been wrong. What they're saying is that letting it live is the correct decision. That's what they're saying. That is what their point is.
If I had to take any moral of the story, that's probably it.
But that's not in their... that is not,
that's not their right.
Position. Yeah, it's not their right to make that decision. It's so... It's so... It's not their decision.
Let's move on to the Doctor. My favorite Doctor is the 12th Doctor. I absolutely love him. I think he is incredible. However, say, when this is originally aired in 2014, say you were like, oh, I've not watched any of that new Doctor yet. I'm just going to give an episode a go. Imagine you watched this one first. You'd come away from that going, he's a bit different to David Tennant, isn't he? This guy's It's horror. It's a really horrible introduction to this Doctor. And it annoys me on two levels. A, really bad characterization. We'll come on to that in a second. But B, from a personal level, because I love this Doctor so much, he gets a lot of bad rap from some people that would say like, well, he's too mean in some places. He doesn't do this, that, and the other. And when you see an episode like this, it fully supports that argument. And I'm going like, but that's not this Doctor. This is a real blip in his character. But if you take this as your introduction to this Doctor, it is horrible because the Doctor is awful.
In this instance, he's being because
I'll have fun bleeping that one.
Yeah. Because he's doing it because he wants it to be our decision, which again folds back to the whole attempted message of this thing, when it really kind of... Right. If I ask you, Aidan, to help me with a really stressful situation, no matter what it is, and you tell me to basically go myself and skip outside the room and having a little la-di-da-di-da, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to murder you. That's what I do.
Yeah, because the Doctor even says, it's not my problem. So that would be like you go, Aidan, can you help me with this? And me go, not my problem, and just leaving. That is literally what it does here. And that is just such an arsehole thing to do. And it's also just not in line with the Doctor's character at all. No. Like we were saying about, the Timeless Child being 57 years out the window. Why the hell has he ever helped Earth then? Yeah, if he says, well, it's not my planet, I don't need to bother. Why?
The Doctor always tries to save all life. Sorry, Aidan. No, you talk.
I was about to say, well, if it's coming back, if it is that abortion message, maybe just going, well, it's not my body. Maybe that's the thing. But let's even take it. Let's remove that whole message just from this debate here. It just doesn't. Yeah.
But it's removing the debate. It's the Doctor he protects Earth. He protects every single species ever. But he has a really strong connection to Earth. That is just a fact. It's like we're his pets. That's just how it is. So he's going to want to protect us, but he's also going to want to protect this new alien. I don't know why he can't be the Doctor and figure out a way to save both, which is very doctory and would have made sense. Like this is your decision to make. Like if he's saying this is your decision, I need to do something. Like he's, if he's going to try and figure out a way to save both, okay. But instead, he genuinely leaves it to them up until the point where they suddenly decide not to. What if they did blow it up? Clara dies.
Yeah.
That could have happened.
Yeah, and then that's on him, and it's
And the
like,
doctor
well, what the hell did you do that
he
for?
left it so late that would have happened. Because he came back the moment after they decided not to.
Yeah.
Not any second before. So he would have been too late.
I do think perhaps maybe one of my notes was, where did he go when he left? Where did he go? And I do think maybe he went away and researched what happened. And I think maybe if let's give this benefit of the doubt, maybe if he researched that they did blow up, maybe he would arrive just before the timer runs out and picks them up and takes them away. Maybe he went away and found out that they didn't blow it up, and then he knew it was safe to arrive. Then let's just say that as a benefit of the doubt, he researched what happened. But even still, he should never have left in the first place.
No, but if they were going to go down that route of him leaving to research something, then you need to show us him doing that, because they don't even tell us him doing that. So it's literally, I have a feeling he just dematerialized and just sat there touching himself for a bit.
Lovely.
Because now that's how much I dislike this Doctor. I do not have any like here this moment. I mean,
yeah, I know.
I have no respect for for what he did at all.
He says that the future is as equally malleable as the past. There's no. He says this isn't a fixed point in time, and I think that completely goes against what he's doing here. Because usually the Doctor, anytime he doesn't intervene, is when it is a fixed point in time, and he says, "I can't intervene here because this has to happen."
Waters of Mars, all that kind of stuff.
Like he even says in this episode, we went to dinner in Berlin in 1937. I didn't pop off and kill Hitler afterwards. That's a point he says there, because he says, that has to happen. That's a fixed point in time. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense is when he says, this isn't a fixed point in time, so I'm not going to get involved. Well, if this isn't a fixed point in time, why aren't you getting involved? You can do what you want here.
Mm-hmm.
This has to happen. So be the Doctor and do what you are supposed to do and help and save the planet.
You're right. By his own definition, fixed points in time are something he cannot intervene in. And stuff that is grey, he can always get involved in by his definition. So for him not to do that is going against his character, going against what he thinks, and is him just being an arse for the sake of being an arse. There's no... And the TARDIS can do wonderful things to drag planets. The moon's tiny. He could have easily just moved out of the way. Or, this was my theory, honestly, to deal with this, cover the moon in some sort of, maybe some fish oil or milk, if this is what the tree creature likes to eat or drink. I don't know. Cover the TARDIS in that, or a big bag of whatever, and just dangle it in front of it when it's born, then just fly away. Easy peasy. Or just tie it up in a big rope and just pull it away.
Or another one, just like you just said there, by covering the planet, it just occurred to me, the TARDIS has its own force field. Now, we've seen the Doctor extend that force field many times. Why couldn't he have just landed the TARDIS, extend the force field around the moon, so then when the alien breaks free, we catch all of that shrapnel. Once we realise, it's safe and it can fly away, the TARDIS folds in the force field, the thing flies away, another moon appears, we fly away, it's all hunky-dory. Because then you could even say, well, what happens to the TARDIS then? Would it get damaged? No, we've seen the TARDIS be put through much worse. They can all just sit in there. You might have a bit of a bumpy ride while they're in there, but they're going to be fine.
Okay.
It just, there's no right. It feels like they said, okay, we need to say this is a woman's decision. How do we get the Doctor out of the picture? That's what it feels like they did. They got rid of the Doctor and then went, oh, shall we just lean into that dark thing? It's like, no, you've completely messed this up. I can't think of a worse way they could have done this. This feels like the worst possible thing you could have done.
It's like they brainstorm ideas and then Dave walked into the room and was like, yeah.
Well, actually, the only way they could have done this worse if it's the Doctor just pulls out a sawed-off shotgun and shoots Hermione Norris, then just goes, Clara, it's your decision. That'd be like the worst. That would have been the worst decision. And then when we come down to the final scene, Well, not counting the Danny Pink scene, which I think is all right, to be fair, because Danny seems to be the only one who's got logic in this episode.
Yeah.
But when we come down to that final scene where Clara has a go at the Doctor, this is when I say maybe Jenna Coleman's the best. But Clara, even though it's quite nice that she's standing up to the Doctor, and I've said to you before, I like it when companions challenge the Doctor. That's my favorite thing about companions. The problem with Clara here is my biggest problem with Clara when she was in the show, and I hated her. I don't know who she thinks she is. Because when we come down to the fact right, you got 2 points here. The planet vote to kill this monster. And she says, no, my idea is better than yours. What, better than 7 billion people? Maybe even 8 billion by the time 2049's come around. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why is your decision more valid than everybody on Earth? And then there's even a bit when she is shouting at the Doctor, she literally says, don't you dare lump me in with the rest of those pathetic little humans. And it's like, who do you think you are?
It's like again, it's the idea that but it makes me feel like the writer feels as though he is better than everyone else, and he's just putting himself in Clara's shoes.
In Clara's shoes, yeah.
And he's writing what he thinks of himself as her. That's what I think he's doing. Because everything is about him being her, telling us that what she did was the right decision. That's all he's doing, telling us that her decision is the correct one, and that she is better than every other human. You wouldn't be doing that unless you yourself believe you're better than every other person. Yeah. I think he's enough himself.
Because unless you're analyzing it like this, if you were just looking at this surface level, you just watch this episode. You're a casual fan. You just watch this episode once. You don't come away from this having analyzed it like we have, going, "Well, this writer's a bit of a knob." You come away from it going, "I don't like Clara much, and the Doctor's even worse." You know, I think I'm gonna stop watching this show, and it's not a nice message. It really isn't.
It doesn't. And
it's like
the Doctor doesn't even try to apologize. And I mean, I know he's emotionally distanced, but I've always believed if the Doctor has made you to the point where you're crying, he's going to say something profound to lighten your spirits. Matt's done that. David's Doctor's done that. Christopher Eccleston, all of the Doctors have had a moment where they can really just lift you. Like Christopher Eccleston just saying you're fantastic, that kind of thing. Just something like that. It's nice. But in this case, he's just a bit of a wetter when he's trying to fix
Yeah, I just hate it. I really, besides the polka dot shirt, I just hate everything about the Doctor in this episode. Well, except in the first half when he's, when we said he's, talking about the gravity and all that kind of thing. I like all of that, and that is nice, Doctor.
Emotionally distant.
As soon as he leaves, it just collapses.
Yeah, emotionally distant does not by definition mean being an arsehole. Emotionally distant means you've been through so much stuff that you are tortured and you struggle to connect, but you understand and you don't want to hurt people. You're scared of losing people.
I just hate it so much.
So much, yeah.
So much.
Quickly, how shall we fix this episode?
Well, you said you had some ideas, so do you want to take it?
Right. Okay. So, first we get rid of this giant egg idea. It's not an egg. It's just the moon. Just the moon. Okay. Really simple idea to fix this. There's a mystery on the moon. Why is it? It still gains a lot of mass. Still dense. Still as dense as the writer. And what do we do? So the Doctor comes. He's having a good look around, and we'll just make it easy peasy. It's just an infestation. There's just an infestation of these aliens that have just been breeding and spreading, and that can create weight. They have these aliens, and it's just that classic. Because how often in Doctor Who do we get a classic aliens being creepy aliens, that kind of thing? Not that much usually. So we just have that. Why not? Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Done.
Yeah, that's really nice. Because like you said, if there was enough of those aliens on the planet and in the surface, let's say they've created caves and caverns within the moon.
Yep.
That is going to create weight. If there's enough of them, that is going to create weight. Like you said, that is the reason for it. Yeah. We don't need to have a baby inside the moon. Nope. We don't need to have... And they can even still make cobwebs, sure, if you want to make this creepy spider thing. Go for it. But we don't... The bacteria doesn't make sense. The alien doesn't make... The baby thing doesn't make sense. The abortion message is lost because you've just given us the worst possible perspective on it. Making the Doctor leave... it will annoy me forever. This episode is 7 years old and it still annoys me. I'm going to agree completely with you on the what we do to fix it, because my only fix would be just throw out the script. But let's just take it. Let's say this script has to happen. How do we change it? That is the only way I can see making sense, because you have to get rid of the baby. In my mind, you can't. The moon being an egg is dumb.
Yeah,
and that's the only way to say it.
And the way you can resolve this is, instead of having nukes, you could just have a some sort of futuristic flame, like napalm bomb, which literally spreads through the center of the moon, igniting everything and just literally cremating everything inside the moon. Just so
and
big
then you
flash of fire.
And then you could still I don't know, have some sort of debate of, well, if is let's
Was
say
it our right to kill all these things?
Yeah, and you could still say, well, maybe if we do that, maybe there's risk of the moon exploding and throwing down shrapnel. Maybe you can still have that argument in there, but you don't need to say it's eggshell. That's the difference. You could still say, well, what we're doing, let's say this moon is infested, we don't know what's going on. This team of people go there, still keep the whole lost interest in space travel thing, keep the exact same crew and their a rocket. You can keep all of that.
In space, they're called spaceships.
Yes.
Not planes.
Planes. I just remembered the white thing landing and thought plane.
Little shuttle.
No, so you can keep all of that. That is fine. That is completely fine. And you can still have I forgot what I was going to say, that you can still have all of that. And the Doctor gets there and it's like, well, do we risk the bomb or do we try and find another way? Whatever that other way is, I don't know really. But that's up to the writer to decide. We're not writing this. So we don't have to say anything. So that you can still keep that. It's just the debate, the abortion debate is, I'm going to say it's wrong for a show like this to tackle, because it is one of those like you said, it's a personal decision. It is not up to. It's not a debate.
It's not a moral of a story either. It's not. It's because for it to be a message, it's the writer thinking that it is this moral that needs to be told and needs to be learned. Because remember, Doctor Who's watched by kids. It feels really manipulative in a way as well.
Yeah, but even if you were going to put a moral in it, the moral could be, well, it's not a mass decision, it's up to the individual. That could be your moral. And you could say, okay, well, maybe we do affect, maybe this decision does maybe affect a mass amount of people, but it's up to us to decide, how does this affect us now? And what's that kind of, I don't really know what I'm trying to say here, but the idea is that everything is grey. Like he says, this is a malleable point in time. Sure, go for that. Make it be a niche decision where everything is up to the individual. Don't say this is what everybody has to do because everything else is wrong. That is wrong in itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, 100%. And if BBC, you are listening to this and you want to tackle this kind of debate in the future with a TV show, do it like it's a sin. Do an actual heartfelt story where you show us each perspective from different people who are experiencing it, and don't tell us which one is correct. Just show us how people deal with it. That's how you do that kind of. That's how you can show that kind of thing in a TV show or a film. You don't turn it into a message, because it isn't. It just isn't. And on that bombshell.
On that eggshell.
Oh.
That brings us to the end, because I've had enough of this episode.
Yeah.
I hate this episode with a passion. It is one of my probably top 10.
I hate it
episodes.
more now, which was thanks to our discussion.
Yeah, that's what these tend to do. So, usually, does this episode deserve a second chance? No, it absolutely does not.
No,
and there's some episodes of New Who that I think are so bad, I'm not even going to talk about on this podcast. Like Saranga Conundrum from Series 11. I think it's so bad, it doesn't even deserve discussing.
What's it about?
But good question. That's the problem. There's a pregnant man in it at some point. There's a really cheap flight. Anyway, that's a different episode. I'm not even going to discuss that episode because it's not even worth talking about. This one I hate this episode, but I've talked about it because, like I said, I love the 12th Doctor and this gives off completely the wrong messages. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. Next week will be, for God's sake.
Oh, come on. Can we not have a semi-good one?
Next week, we're on to the 13th Doctor. And
which one is it?
We're going to be doing an episode from Series 12 called Orphan 55. And yeah, it's atrocious. So, but there are actually some bits I like at the beginning of the episode. So that's why I want to talk about that one.
Right, let's just,
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening.